I'm Lynn Preston, and I'm here with Steve Moscovitch, and we're going to talk about focusing-oriented therapy and what's unique about it as an approach, and how it sort of goes with everything. It's integratable with everything, and sort of fills out other approaches in certain kinds of ways. So let's begin. And wherever you are about you've been a focusing-oriented therapist for a long time, right?
I'd say 22 years.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you say it in that kind of way. I've been a focusing-oriented therapist, so some of so I start asking in terms of if that's my therapist identity. So then I say something like, okay, well, all right, well, what is this topic? What is unique about focusing-oriented therapy? And I ask this question too, which is, if as you were saying in your introduction, that it has something that fills out and is integratable with other models, and Gene talked about that in his 1996 book. Then can I call myself a focusing-oriented therapist, or would I say I'm I'm someone who brings focusing orientation to other models? Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you thought about that for a moment, what you would call yourself.
I would say, well, what comes right now is very close to focusing-oriented therapist, is focusing-finding therapist. or something like that. But I'm still going to, call myself a focusing-oriented therapist, and a focusing-oriented therapist who works with a number of different models, and so that are complementary to focusing, and that focusing can enhance.
Yeah. What would be the main models that you integrate with focusing?
Broadly speaking, person-centered therapy, of course. I would also say internal family systems in the last half a dozen years, acceptance and commitment therapy, and what I'm learning about self-psychology. That's a newer kind of relational dimension that I've been learning. I'm learning from you. So I'd say those are those would be the biggest for me.
Yeah. It's interesting because a name is also a kind of identity, a handle for who we feel we are, but also the sort of family that you feel you belong to. And these are all different families that you brought together into your larger family.
That's a good way to put it. Yes. So when you think about an identity as being connected to the family, then definitely I'm a focusing-oriented therapist. And so then it's kind of like, well, so what makes that quite wonderful when I'm amongst members of my family who might go at things in different kinds of ways, is that there our uniqueness, which is finding, assisting in varying kinds of ways through the therapeutic relationship and with the assistance of models in that context. The client's experiencing of carrying forward, of right next steps, of their own sort of felt meaning that has a movement in it, like a wave So when I'm thinking when I'm working with a client, I'm often thinking about, I'm not only listening to their particular words and also listening what's between the lines, but I'm also having an image of a wave or the movement of a river, and that those words and those implied words and unspoken words are part of that river that has, been stopped in some kind of way, and the river might refer to as sort of a river of longing, or a river of something like that, and that implicit movement.
Right, a river of longing. I love that. That would it be right to say we are all rivers of longing?
I think so. Yeah.
And you're finding the wave in the river.
I'm listening, I'm making safe space for the wave, for the wave to be shown. And then I'm looking for the linkages between the wave and the river that it's a part of, or an ocean. But it's a river in the sense that it's moving somewhere. And so then there's a blocked and a hurt, trauma affected blockage, longing, and those little bits of, and so then the little bits of, so I'm now getting more of a sense of this from talking with you. So it's kind of like there's the small L longings that I'm relating to in the processes of empathy. And then I'm having this kind of a sense that those small L longings are connected to that person's authentic, fingerprint, capital L longing. And focusing, I think what focusing and felt sensing, or finding the felt sense, helps people helps that person to find or express and have symbolized together their increasingly larger L longings.
Yes. So you're picturing, we're really playing with this metaphor here. You're picturing this deep current of this river with its waves, and then also the smaller little tributaries, or I picture it. The small L longings, like the leaves that are being washed down the river, that get snagged, and but also maybe the deep longings get dammed up somewhere, and and then we're looking for that life force there, with that movement. That's under the surface, right under the surface of what people are talking about.
And Jean would use the word stoppage. And so you're talking about that damming up, of that, that deeper, life force longing river.
Right.
And
I'm sorry, just to let people know when we talk about Jean, we're talking about Jean Genlin, because maybe somebody watching this video might not know his work.
Yeah. So I could give an example. Over the years, I would often ask clients, or I talked with clients early on about the importance of tears. It's a part of and they'll probably apologize for their tears if they come, but they don't have to, but they probably will anyway. And then I think tears are really important, because help connect with what's deepest, matters most deeply to us. And so one of the questions that came to me through focusing oriented work over the years, and us focusing oriented therapists, we don't just practice with our clients. We practice ourselves and with partners and with therapists.
Absolutely.
And all. So the personal experience of working with tears, and then over time with clients would be if somebody's eyes began to tear, I would say something like, what's worthy of your tears right now? And in order to be, and like it's sort of a variation on what's at the heart of these tears right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so then in that kind of heart of crux kind of question, there would be, nobody could answer that question immediately. So they would have to go inside and sort of find what's worthy, the felt meaning of it. And so that would be a way of not only this hurts, but there's a longing or a disappointed longing or something underneath the expression of the tears that might be there.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot in what you're saying. An assumption that what's deepest is not a pathology or a life situation even, but what's deepest is this current of longing and becoming and life force that inherently wants to move and open and go to the ocean, right? The river wants to go to the ocean, right? Yeah. And when you talk about crux questions, just to bring people into that, there's a kind of idea in focusing oriented therapy that there are certain kinds of questions that we can ask that invite people to find that deeper place in themselves, in their bodies, in their implicit experience, and the question of what's worthy of your tears. Or some people will ask, what's the worst about this? And you were talking to me before about the question of well, what's best about this, or what's exciting about this, or
that can be a powerful question too, because it can be that in a sense the sort of the deeper life story movement of the person can be found by kind of going inside and finding a felt sense answer to that.
Right. So what we're saying is that focusing oriented therapy is centered around this going inside, and what we mean by that is some settling and looking for what's there in that moment. And then the felt sense is the way we sense it, experience it, the way it comes to us, the words that just have that right fit, that will fit it. And then that when it's recognized and it's given space and it's in relationship with the therapist, right? That carries forward, it opens up, it has a momentum, it has an energy, and we're following that energy and that opening. And I have a little example of that I did a workshop a few years ago in a hospital situation with people who didn't know focusing at all, with the staff of the hospital, and they didn't know what they were in for with my workshop, but was part of their program. And so I started by asking people what they wanted to get out of the workshop. And people said, oh, I want to learn more about helping people, or I'm glad that I had this time off from my other days to be here, or I always want to learn something new, or I'm having a lot of trouble with my with the patients here because they're in so much pain, and I want to see if you have any tips for that. And then I talked a little bit more about about what we would do in the workshop of exploring this territory that is just below our thinking, just below our words. And then I asked them to breathe and to sense their bodies, and then ask, well, what do you want to get from this workshop? To ask that deeper place.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the answers were all completely different.
Yeah.
There were answers that didn't even make sense to people. Oh, I want to come here because I want to be close to so and so who is at the workshop, or there's something that I can't say that I want to learn. But all kinds of answers that you could tell were coming from this deeper place.
Yeah, this deeper place, and their particular stream, or their particular river.
That's right.
That was joining up in the river of your workshop or your class. Well, it's very inspiring to me to hear this. And I mean, they didn't, most if not all of them didn't know anything about particularly, so they didn't have that in their heads particularly, and then they just went, the relation that you helped them have, that the interaction that you were, some translation will need to happen here, but the interaction that you were with them helped that interaction to happen in the room, and then they went inside and had connected at a deeper flow,
Yeah.
where their river was flowing at that point in time.
Right.
I find that very very inspiring.
What is it about it that?
Well, maybe it's more on the
I could ask you, what's the best of that?
what's the best of that? Yeah. Or I'll say, what sort of what moves me and moves me in a forwarding way. Well, we started off with me wondering about my identity, and whether I, call myself a focusing oriented therapist because of the lots of similarities at a certain level that focusing oriented therapy has with other therapies. And just hearing the story and doing our talk says, yeah, I'm a focusing oriented therapist. And it's because of that preciousness of being able to find that place, that place, that movement, that particular life forward movement for a particular person. Those green shoots that the term that Jean used to describe those moments of growth and development, and their river becoming undammed. We tend to know that there's a deeper stream, there's a deeper forward, and we have that on our map in a way that the other models don't, I think.
There's a very particularity of what Jean calls finding the spot, finding that place where something is poking up. Maybe we're mixing metaphors there, that needs to be attended to open, to be paid attention to on its own terms, what it's saying, not what we're saying to it, that we can say to it, be compassionate toward yourself and be curious, but then to hear what it says, and then to say, well, what is that? Why do you say that's bullshit? I shouldn't be compassionate to myself, right? Or whatever. It's listening. It's a kind of listening to this deeper river place that may come in the form of things that we don't like about ourselves, or things that are the deepest struggles, or places of conflict. Often that we're trying to enable to move forward in the river comes in packages that we have a lot of and so the self-compassion is very important. And I like what you're saying about, well, of course, all of the models of therapy want this deeper river and this moving forward, and all of them can help people to get there. But there's something very special about the way that Jenlin talks about the tiny steps of change that can be so helpful to therapists, to look at the tiny little micro moments of something opening up, and that little spark of curiosity, that little spark of acceptance, or even energy that can come just without even us knowing that it would come there. It's a kind of a surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That word surprise is I would say that when I began to bring focusing and develop and become more focusing oriented in my work, what came was how often I was surprised. How often, yeah. Whether I was being with somebody in a focusing kind of way, or or listening empathically, or asking a particular kind of question, and I might have some sort of theoretical or my own interpretation of what the answer was going to be, and surprise happens a fair amount.
Yes.
And there's something in this orientation that makes room for surprise, or helps to co-create it, or something like that.
Yes. I love Donald Stern's phrase of courting surprise. We're courting surprise, of that, because there's something romantic about it. We're not just making room for it, but we're evoking it, invoking it, wanting that surprise. I think a lot of what we're talking about today can be summed up in Jean's quote about every bit of human experience has a forward movement inherent in it, and it's looking for any experience, the experience of self-hating, the experience of tragic remorse, the experience of suffering, has in it this river, and just trying to touch that life in any experience and find the words that open it up, that bring it that surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I'm just thinking of lots of experiences with the truth of that. And yeah, absolutely.